Hey, everybody. I've got above my pay grade with me again, and he's going to tell us about water. And by the way, check out his channel. He's got a great channel. He's got a good sense of humor. I always forget to say those kind of things and hit the like button, subscribe, and ring the bell. We bring value in every single video.
Love to
And
see
he's about
it.
to bring you value with water. Tell us all about it.
All right, guys. So, as Chris and I were talking earlier, a little bit of my background. I've been in the military 14 years. I teach something called SEER, Survival, Evasion, Resistance and Escape. And it's basically soup to nuts what a pilot needs if they were to eject over a foreign country. So we teach them how to procure water, how to find food, how to stay alive, how to keep their core temperature up at 98.6. So one of the big things I like to talk about is water. Why? Because you cannot sustain your life without it. But some of the things that everyone knows this, but some of the water tricks and tips are counterintuitive. A couple examples. Number one, I always tell people the environment that you least want to drink water is somewhere where it's cold, because it's cold outside. If you're drinking any water, it's probably cold. But if you think about it, your blood is what keeps your body warm. And if you start to get hypothermia or you start to get frostbite, it's because your blood is moving from your extremities to your core. And the thicker that blood is, the colder you're going to be. And blood makes your blood water makes your blood flow, right? It makes it easier to pump through your body, but it becomes way more viscous if you're dehydrated. And I've seen it all throughout my career. I do a lot of training in the Arctic environments. People don't want to drink water, especially if it's cold outside. So number one, water actually keeps you warm, even if that water is cold, because blood is what warms up your body. And if that blood becomes viscous and you become dehydrated, you're going to have a problem. The other thing is,
That's good. I appreciate that.
Yeah. You could survive 3 days without water, but about one, everyone's who's listening to this has probably gone close to 24 hours without water. And I'm assuming they weren't exerting themselves. Try exerting yourselves and going 24 hours without water. Your brain stops functioning. You stop making logical decisions. I typically knew people hadn't drank enough water. They'd start staring at the trees and kind of licking their lips. I'm like, hey, you staring at nothing, you need to go drink water. So water in that environment, in an environment where you're outside all day, especially here in an environment like Colorado where it's super dry, even if you're not sweating, you're expending energy and you're sweating. Even if you don't feel it, you're sweating and you're losing hydration all the time. So it becomes more of a discipline than anything else. Typically, if you're thirsty, you're dehydrated. 9 times out of 10, if you're thirsty, especially in an outdoor environment, you're dehydrated. So a couple things about water. If you're ever looking for water in an environment like Colorado, I always say water is gravitational. So where does it go? It goes down. So if you go up to find water, you're probably not going to find it. You're looking for trees, you're looking for animals, or all signs of water. And when you find it, a couple ways to purify it. I always carry these little iodine tablets, because if you're backpacking, you're worried about weight, right? So I always carry these little iodine tablets. They're about that. The tablet case is about that big, and they're kind of tiny. And those can purify your water. Bleach can do the same thing. Boiling can do the same thing. But
does the water? Wait. I gotta hang up for a second.
Go ahead.
So how? Surely, just dirty water, you can just drink it. You know what I'm saying? Surely there's some type of level of clarity it has to be before the iodine. Can you can you drop a tablet of iodine in muddy water and just go for it?
Mm-hmm. I mean, not right away. You need to wait 10 minutes, but yeah, it doesn't taste good. I mean, it doesn't like clear the taste out. But if it's
got fecal matter in it, I mean, what if it's got something really bad?
Yeah. So I always tell people you're always going off of the logical part of you and the desperate part of you have to come to grips, right? If you're dying of dehydration, you're always like, what's going to kill me first? So I would drink shitty water, no pun intended, if I was about to die of dehydration, because that's going to kill me first. Now, if I had the option to purify it, yes, I would do that. And yes, it does purify it. Is it still going to taste like exactly what it smells like? Yeah. Yeah, unfortunately. So if you had the luxury, what I would do is filter it. So
Sure.
take a shirt, sock, what have you. And
Get
you could
some of it
filter.
out.
Mhm.
Get some of the solids out,
Yeah.
and then iodine it.
Yeah.
Okay.
So one of the things we used to do, the environment people think about water the most is the desert, right? So that's where there's not a lot of it. So one of the things we used to do is typically if you dig down in sand, you're going to have some moisture. If you go anywhere to like a beach or something, you can dig down and maybe it's not standing water, but there's moisture in the sand or in the dirt.
Sure.
So we would take a piece of plastic, we dig a hole, and we put that plastic over the top of that hole. And then in the bottom of the hole, before we put the plastic down, we put like a cup, right? And so what happens is the sun hits that plastic, condensation hits the dirt, and the moisture starts to come out, hit the top of the plastic. And we normally put
Drips
a rock.
down.
Yep, drips down into that. So there's a lot of different ways.
That's how
Easy
much
ways to
water
get
did you get?
not tons. Enough to survive, but not
Oh,
tons.
really?
Yeah, so I would
I
say,
guess it depends on how hot it is outside too.
and how much moisture is in the
Air.
in the ground.
Yeah, I guess so.
So you could do the same thing with like putting a plastic bag around vegetation, and it draws out
Sure.
the moisture, but you're not getting a ton. It's enough to survive, but you're not getting a ton. But the big thing, like if you have the luxury to purify your water, if you drink water where you're going to get giardia, which I've had giardia before, you
Uh,
lose a lot more water after getting giardia than you ever got drinking that water. So it's definitely best to purify. Yeah.
I've been dying to ask you about these. I've seen pictures of these homemade filters, and it's
Mhm.
like look at 3 or 4 sticks, and it'll have a sheet of something, it'll have another
Yep.
sheet, and then another sheet, and then you put, I guess it'd be like pea gravel, and then sand, and then charcoal, and then have you done that? And could you do
Yeah.
that on a mass scale? I mean, could I run it out of my pond, pump it out of my pond into that big filter?
Yeah. So essentially, if you look at some of the the filters you can get on the market, like Brita, they use charcoal.
Sure.
So yes, you can do it. Is it as scientific? Like, is it going to get every
Sure.
99.9999? No, but I've done that before. Yes, where you use a thicker dirt, and we would use any kind of porous material, put that dirt in there, and then charcoal was last, and that gets a lot of the gunk out of there too. So if the water has a lot of chunks in it,
Well, you could
but
use
it's
it for for dishwashing, and
100%.
you wouldn't have to just be. You could have some water on the side that you use that you filtered extra good for drinking, but you could use it for wash water and bathing and all kinds of stuff. You had some kind of big mass filter that you could pump out.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's definitely an easy way to do it. As long as you have, we would kind of build it with parachute material, because that's what pilots would eject with. But any kind of porous material shirt would work too. And then you just put different levels of dirt in there, and charcoal does purify things. So
That's cool.
that was typically the last thing that we would use.
Um, anything else on water that you can think of?
What
It's
the if people are outside a lot, um, the there's a couple aftermarket things you can use for purification that I would take a look at, and one of them is a UV light. So you can just stick that in water and it does purify it. But one last thing is called hyponatremia. So when you drink so much water, it filters it. It clears out all of the electrolytes and all of the salt in your blood, and so you don't have any electrolytes to keep your body moving. So I always tell people, if you're drinking a lot of water, which we tell people to do, you go 50% Gatorade, 50% water. So you're drinking one with electrolytes, one pure water, one with electrolytes, one pure water, and that normally keeps you regular. But you can actually flush out all the salt Pretty much all the salt in your body if you drink too much water.
Yeah, I eat salt constantly, but I
Yeah.
drink a lot of water. I drink a
Yeah.
lot of water.
Yeah.
I'm sitting,
Yeah. I'm sure
we'll
in
go through
Louisiana.
a couple gallons a day. That's usually what I
Oh,
drink.
dang. You're never dehydrated, but you also
No, but
live
it's
in
I
the
have
swamp.
to. I have to. It
Yeah.
keeps my metabolism going, and I don't have to, but when you start drinking a lot of water, it's like you crave more water.
Hmm.
It's like water,
Yeah.
water, water.
Yeah.
They say it's
Absolutely.
good for you, so I just try to stay hydrated in the heat. But when I get dehydrated, it takes a long time to get back because working out in the heat, man, it's unbelievable. When you're welding all day and really sweating it out, you have to kind of plan the night before.
Hmm.
You can't
Hmm.
just get real dehydrated and then the next day go to work and expect to be okay. You have to kind of start the night before, eat salt before bed so you don't pee, and that's what I do. And I've learned to I can pretty much deal with the heat. Uh, but I have to work up to it. It's not something I can just jump into and go to work. I'll be doing have all the signs. I'll be shivering with bumps on my arm, and I get heat sickness
Yeah.
pretty quick.
Yeah. And that, what you're describing is like what we see a lot is people, if you're ever in a survival situation and you've never pushed your body or understood how your body reacts to external either heat sources or cold, and you don't know what to do, a lot of people have the wrong intuition. They do the wrong thing because they've never had to deal with not being able to get into AC. Like their whole life has been, if I'm hot, I can go into air conditioning. If I'm cold, I can go into the heat. But in certain parts of the world and certain scenarios, you just don't have that luxury. So it's all about, as you were just describing, what you do. It's avoiding ever getting to that point where you're desperate because
Yeah, I
if you get,
carry a tent to work. I have
yeah,
a fan on the back of my truck. I take every precaution not to get there
yeah,
because after you get there, you're done.
mm-hmm,
And you're just
100% agree.
and then it rocks on for another 2 days. You feel bad afterwards, if you let it go too far.
Oh yeah, oh yeah.
But I've
And
never felt cold like you. I might have felt heat like you have. I don't know. Have you ever been in the desert and have to do all that?
yeah, we do. Well, the hottest I've ever been is 120. That's in
Freeport?
no, it's in Doha,
I'm just joking. It
Qatar.
gets pretty hot here.
It does. I've been down. I used to live, close to your neck of the woods, and it in the summertime. I tell people there's nothing like the humidity in the South. It's like a blanket, a wet blanket. It follows you around all day, every day. Here in Colorado, it's kind of nice because if
Oh,
you're hot, you can go in the shade. It's 20 degrees cooler in the shade, so you
right.
don't have humidity.
Well, we're getting a little bit off water, but I'm sure it's my fault. I
No,
like
it's
to
fine.
digress.
It's
Um,
fine, man.
what about these life straws?
Yeah, they work. They just are single use. Like you can use them multiple times, but what I mean by single use is you put it up to the source and you have to suck water through it. So unless it's a pump, it's really hard to feel a source of water.
Sure.
Like if
What
you
if you
had
can
an
have a little
algae.
pump you put on the end of it?
Yeah, yeah, that would work. And then there's certain desalination pumps you can get, but majority, I mean,
I didn't know
boiling.
they had a desalination pump. That's cool.
Oh yeah, oh yeah. Um, we put those in
Oh,
our ocean kits, but
well,
the
I guess the military would have that.
yeah, no, I don't know how expensive they are. They could be expensive, but they make them with balloons too. Long story, but there's some you can get aftermarket if you operate around salt water a lot. But and I always tell people simple boiling water is the safest bet. Like if you're ever in a scenario where you're like, I don't know if this is drinkable. But in that case, I would always have. That's why I always have jet boil on me. If I'm out in the woods or whatnot. But preparation, I mean, the key theme throughout a lot of this is you always should have the skill. Like one of the things we teach is navigation too. I said you always should have the skill of using a map and compass. A GPS is nice though, but if your GPS ever fails, you need to be able to fall back on that skill. And the same thing goes with survival and water and building a fire. I never want to be in the position where if I don't start this fire right now, I'm dying. Hopefully I prepared and I don't have to get to that point, but I at least want the skill. I want to know that I can do it,
Sure.
and I want to know how I'm going to react to it, and have um, hopefully the proper skills, but the proper equipment too. And that's what being prepared is all about, which you were kind of referring to earlier. So
Sure. Yeah.
avoiding it is half the battle.
Yeah. And I never regret it. You never regret taking that extra step. And a lot of people are just waking up and they're just starting to get prepared. And all you got to do is a little bit, and you're like, yeah, that was pretty smart. I don't regret buying that food that I ate, that I eat anyway.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
don't regret buying that stove. It's worth more than when I bought it.
yeah.
Like you kind of get into it, it's like, wow, it's kind of like investing. It's
Yeah,
strange. Now you can buy a bunch of junk too, uh, food you're never going to eat, stuff like that. But I'm actually really pumped about a food dehydrator I just bought. Yeah, it's on the way. It's 8 weeks out. If anybody wants a dehydrator, I'll have one in the affiliate links, but they're 8 weeks out right now. So
yeah,
I don't know. As this thing rocks on, I don't know how far out they're going to be.
yeah, yeah. A lot of people are waking up to like, hey, maybe I should preserve. Like canning's the same thing. If you look for canning goods, you're like, okay, you're gonna
Right.
get it in 2 months. But yeah, I would say one thing a lot of people take for granted today is we have central air and heat,
Oh, I
and
don't. I don't take it for granted.
I know you appreciate it, but what I'm saying is a lot of people have never had to be outside without having the option of going in. And in an environment where if you spend some time outside camping, you realize that like that learning curve happens where you're like, oh man, I am really in charge of everything. And in an environment where the heat might go out, this happened in Texas like a couple of years ago with that ice storm. Heat just went out. And so how do you in that environment start a fire? How do you walk to your neighbor's house without potentially getting lost and going hypothermic? Those are just little things like a lot of people have never had to experience being outside without having an external heat source. So that's why some of this stuff is important, especially if you're in the prepping community and you're like, hey, I might not have it might turn my heat off. Germany, they might turn their heat off this winter because they don't have enough natural gas potentially. So
There's going to be some cold people over there.
mhm.
It's going to be
And
real. It's going to be crazy. I can't. I can't imagine if I was over there. I'd have stoves and heaters. I'd have
yeah,
everything piled up because those. It's. I mean, you can see the writing on the wall.
yeah, but then how do you get all the natural materials like wood and all that kind of stuff? The flow of in like a city, there's no probably supply chain for wood to get wood in the city. So if these people are going out trying to find wood in the middle of winter, it's going to be a crap show, unfortunately.
Just
But
start collecting paper. That'd be a good way to do it.
yeah,
Paper
yeah,
ingots, little paper. You can make a slurry out of it and smash them
sure,
down.
sure, yeah. I just think a lot of people have not been forced, which is good. This is the way society is supposed to work. It gets easier to live. But when you lose your edge and you don't have to be resourceful, then the smallest little thing outside could kill you because you've never dealt with anything. All you've had to deal with your entire life is 71 degrees perfectly indoors. But if you've never had to think like, what if I had to live overnight outside? Hopefully you never have to, but what if you do? Those are the kind of things that I like people to think through and at least um, you know, build, like I was saying earlier, build a wet conditions fire to know that you can do it if it's raining or snowing outside. Um,
Yeah, that'd be pretty tough.
yeah,
I
it's
did it when
tough,
I
but
was
it's
a
good to
kid,
practice.
but
Yeah.
yeah, it'd be great practice. Um, so we've covered water and then a bunch of other stuff. Is there one thing that you want people to take away out of all this?
Yeah, I'd say understand your limitations. Like I was saying earlier, if you've never been in that scenario, you don't know how you're going to react. Normally it's counterintuitively. Good example is the water thing. If it's cold outside. It's counterintuitive. People don't want to drink cold water, but it makes you warmer, believe it or not. Um, so practice makes perfect when it comes to this stuff. If you're not an outdoorsy person, that's fine. No one likes being freezing cold or whatnot, but practice it in a controlled, comfortable environment. And if you can do it there, at least you have that confidence that you can do it if you ever needed to.
Well, that's the one thing I learned for sure in this video is you need to drink water when it's cold, because I'm bad
Yeah.
about that.
Yeah.
Who wants to drink cold water when it's cold?
Yeah, I prefer warm water, right? If you had the
Sure.
luxury, I'd want to drink warm water. But just in general, if it's cold, people don't want to drink. They're
But
just
then
like,
if you make coffee, that's a diuretic,
yeah,
and you're peeing out more water than you drink in.
yeah.
So you really should not drink caffeine, right?
Yeah, yeah. If you're drinking a ton, if you had the, if you're surviving, yes. I always drink coffee.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
my coffee is like turbo lax, dehydrating. It's good. I put a
Yeah.
big chunk of butter in it and whip it up.
Woo!
It's really
Yeah,
looking forward to it.
as I pour mine, you can't see through it. So when I pour it from the pot to the
Now,
cup,
if you can see through it, I don't even want it.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm with you on that. Well, man, have an awesome evening.
Yeah.
I
Hey,
will.
thanks for taking the time.
Absolutely. Everybody, make sure you go check out Above My Pay Grade. He's got all kind of good content over there. He doesn't usually do this kind of content on your channel, do you?
No, I try to
No.
keep my military career out of it.
Right, but we can take
yeah.
a ton of things away from this guy. So if you have any questions, ask him in the comments, and I'll have him back on, and we'll do it again.
All right, Chris, thanks so much. Have a good
Later,
evening.
dude.
See ya.